with my grandma and my cousin. And I look like this. And there's thousands of people everywhere.
This is how you shop at Macy's.
Extra. Everybody keeps staring at me. I look so extra.
She looks so out of place.
Oh, like always.
Wait, do that again? You look stupid.
I don't care.
Hey, Grandma.
She doesn't like my pants. But she said she would wear it to the club back in the day.
If it wasn't style.
If it wasn't style.
Grandma, you like them?
Today we are going to be making Balenciaga boots, the ones that you saw on Michelle Obama. We're going to make those today. And I'm in Joann's right now, trying to find fabric for those boots. I want her boots, not the green Balenciaga ones that I see or the cheetah print ones that are blue. I want iridescent boots. I'm going to show you guys how to make your own today. Oh, yeah, I need fabric like this. Why does my camera look so ashy? Okay, that looks better. Yeah, I'm looking for fabrics like these, but more like Michelle Obama's that she wore the other day. I wish they had this, like, iridescent thing and a full fabric like that. Oh. See, the original Balenciaga boots are green like those. And I don't want that. I want iridescent, but in that. Yes.
I didn't want to grab it in case you didn't want it.
No, because I found this one.
I like that one more.
Hey guys, just made it back home with the goods. As you guys saw, I couldn't find, sorry about the light, you guys. I couldn't find the type of fabric that Michelle Obama had on her Balenciaga boots, but I found this iridescent blue purple fabric that I want to use for my boots since I couldn't find what I wanted. So we're gonna make our boots out of this. I have these shoes that I bought off Amazon for like 2 Halloweens ago, and they're pretty raggedy, like dirty. Probably never gonna wear them, but you see they're already falling apart at the seam. I'm just gonna rip that part off so that we can make our shoes. So I'm gonna use these shoes and my fabric, and I need to get my E6000 glue. So let me find that too. Yeah, so we got some heels right here. We got some fabric. We got some E6000 glue for the shoe part of it. Of course, we're gonna have my pattern, and we're gonna have to use a sewing machine in order to get these pants boots that Balenciaga made that are so cute. So we're gonna use those today. The other crucial item you need is this Maxi Lock stretch thread. It's a little expensive. It's like $8 a spool. But if you want to sew anything that's stretch and you want it to actually fit and your strings don't pop, you need to buy this thread. And when you're using the thread, then you need to put it on your bottom bobbin that looks like this, or if you have the metal one, make sure it's at that bobbin. As far as your top thread, you can use any kind of thread and any color that matches your fabric. Also, you need the clamps. I had 3 of them. And then you'll need your markers, your pens, your scissors, measuring tape, pins, all that stuff like that. Things you normally use to sew with for this tutorial. Okay, so last time, you guys, my last upload was my um, sportswear pattern tutorial where you made a sports bra and leggings, and you could have did it whatever length you wanted, high waisted, low waisted. I'm gonna use that pattern to make these Balenciaga boot pants because it was high waisted last time. I already have the pattern, but I'm gonna alter it so that I can make it into what we're making today. So I need to find a pattern in this so that we can make our pants. I think it's this right here. Okay, you guys, so I kind of lost some vlog footage, my bad, but I'm just going to explain what's going on right here. I made a leggings pattern in my last DIY tutorial, so you can check that out. But I just paste the waistband to the leggings pattern piece, and you can see it's taped right there, and right now I'm just cutting off the sides to make sure it's all smooth and matches at the crotch part. And now I am just making a center front seam on the front side of the leggings. On my last tutorial, we did like a seamless look on the outside, so there wasn't a seam. There's only a seam on the inseam. No, that's so confusing. The outside of your leg, you don't see a seam, but there is a seam on the inside of your leg. So right now, I am just measuring the middle part of my front leg piece because it's all one piece together. And I'm making a line going down the middle. I'm sorry if that sounds so confusing, but just pay attention to what I'm doing so you can do it to your own pattern. And for those of you that don't want to make your own pattern, I will have this Balenciaga Boots pattern. I'll have a link down below where you can get your own. But that's all the announcements I have to make towards patterns. Right now, I am just cutting that line that I created for the front part. I'm just cutting it down the middle because we need it to be two separate pieces. If you see on the Balenciaga boots, you see a front, like a literal seam going down the middle of the entire pants and the boots. So that's what this line is right now. Okay, so here I am just labeling the front piece, the front and the back piece that's together. You should do this on your pattern too so you don't get confused. My Sharpie was looking a little dry, so I had to redo it. For reference of what's going on, I put a shoe down so that you can see how this is supposed to go together. Guys, I made a pattern for the boot part, which I'm doing this so that you guys don't have to do this part. But I just took fabric and wrapped it around and just pinned it. How the Balenciaga boots are is they have a seam going down the middle of your leg, so I did that and I pinned it in the front. And my shoe is gonna have a seam on the inside because that's the only way I can make this boot. So I made a line to match the inseam, which is gonna go right here. There's gonna be a seam right here and a seam right here. All this is just gonna wrap around, and this is so that I can match it on my pattern that I'm showing you guys how to make. But I did the boot part for you guys so you guys don't have to figure that part out. But really, I just wrapped fabric around, pinned it so that it stays tight. So if you're game for making your own Balenciaga boot, this foot piece right here is only going to be a template, so you'll have to make it your own size for your foot. Everybody's size is different, and I cannot figure out for the life of me how to make this into a multiple size pattern. So templates only, y'all. And this is just some stretch swimsuit lining that I have laying around. So this is what I did. I put on a pair of leggings that were like my pattern, which these are from Nike or Adidas. I think they're Adidas. Yeah. So I'm just gonna take this part apart. Got my pins right here. So this weird thing is the shoe part of the pattern that we're gonna attach to the pattern that's on the table that I'm showing you guys how to make. But this is the pattern, and it looks so weird, but it makes a shoe. So yeah, so let's get back up there. Okay, we have our front and our back piece of our legging, and now we have that weird foot piece that I was showing you. I'm just placing it where it belongs, and I'm just going to cut that piece into half because I told you guys that it's going to be two separate pieces that we're sewing together. So this piece goes on that front and back piece, and the other piece is going to go to the front, like right here. I know the foot pieces look strange, so we're actually going to take the fabric pieces and we're going to make them into actual patterns. Well, I am. You guys aren't going to see this part because, again, this is a template. But I'm just going to transfer these fabric pieces and make them into patterns like right now. As you see, I cut out the extra crap that was on the sides and I added a 1/2 inch seam allowance on them. And I'm just going to label this piece the front piece, the other part's technically the back piece. It's all the same, but they match at the front center seam. Next, I'm going to take my foot pattern pieces and tape them to the bottoms of my legging pieces. As you can see, the front one's on top, the back pieces are on the bottom, and I'm just going to tape them at the end of the leggings. As you can see, my legging pieces don't have seam allowance on it, but don't worry about that part. I'm going to show you guys what to do in the next clip. I'm just going to be taping the pieces together really right now. Okay, and now I am just placing down my pattern pieces on my fabric and I'm just pinning them down, and then I'm taking some chalk and drawing in my 1/2 inch seam allowance on the rest of the pattern on the legging pieces and just cutting them out. And I'm cutting 2 pieces for each pattern piece. This is what my seam allowance looks like. You see it's matching along now. It was really hard to pin this fabric, so I ended up having to trace the entire thing. But at the top, I just did a 3/4 seam allowance. You can do a 1/2 inch if you want to. I just did a 3/4 because I didn't know what I was doing at this point. Like I said before, I cut 2 pieces of fabric for my pattern pieces each. So I have 2 fronts and I have 2 back pieces, and they're going to make both the legs of your leggings. And let me just talk about this fabric right quick. This fabric, I would not suggest it at all. For this tutorial, I would get something thicker, or I would just get the regular swimsuit lycra, that type of stuff. This metallic fabric was so hard to pull apart. It stuck together. As you can see, I'm over here struggling, trying to get it apart. And then 2, I could barely get the pins through. It was hard to sew. And 3, the metallic, when you wear it down, me actually wearing it, the metallic started lifting up. So I would not suggest this, but I'm going to show you how to make your own anyway. Since I bought my fabric, I'm not wasting my money. So you remember when I split my pattern into 2 separate pieces? We're actually pinning the fabric back together where we cut it at. And it should create like some weird looking mermaid tail once you're done pinning that front seam together. And it'll look something like this. It literally is going to look like 2 mermaid tails when you do both your legs. And I already did my first leg off camera, so I'm just showing you the second leg. And I actually want to say I'm really sorry about how bad this fabric is reflecting off into the camera. I had a lot of camera issues and I didn't notice it was doing this until I started editing this video. So next time I'll pay attention a little bit more, but yeah. After I finish pinning my fabric pieces together, I have my front piece sitting on top of my back piece, and it's pinned all the way down to the bottom of the shoe. Like I said, it literally looks like a tail, a fish tail. And so I'm just gonna I'm gonna sew that part that I pinned at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'm gonna do that for the other leg too, because this is just one leg. Okay, so you remember earlier when I told you that you need to use your stretch serger thread? While you're sewing your 1/2 inch seam allowance, make sure that you're pulling your fabric a little bit so that it'll stretch out when it's actually on your body and not pop. After sewing my one leg, because this is leggings, blah blah Yeah, my one leg looked like this. You can see that it's ruching a little bit at that seam that we just sewed, or that I just sewed. It's okay if it looks like that. It's because I had to stretch my fabric as I was sewing, so when it's actually on my body, it's not gonna look wrinkled. It's gonna fit perfectly and it won't pop any threads because it's already stretched. And this is my second leg that I'm putting on top right now, and I'm just gonna pin them at the crotch like so. Yeah, so I'm gonna just pin my front and my back crotches. The left side is the shorter side, so that's my front crotch, and the right side is my back side, so that's my back crotch area. I'm just gonna pin those two pieces together so that I can create my full legging. The next step is to sew those two crotches at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Again, make sure you're stretching it as you're sewing. Alright, so after I sewed my crotch pieces on both sides, I can just pull my fabric and it'll start making an actual legging. But when I got to this point, as you see, it looked like that waist was super small, but I stretched it out and I realized that it's actually super stretchy. I was starting to get nervous because when I make these tutorials, I'm just sewing and I'm just recording what I'm doing. So I was getting super nervous of what was going on. But right here, I am pinning my front and my back crotch together with some pins, opening up my seam so that it's not rubbing against me when I wear it. Yeah. These pants was making me nervous the entire time I was sewing. But yeah, when I saw how small that waist was going, I started getting a little bit nervous. Even when I'm looking at these legs right now, I was getting a little bit nervous that this wasn't going to fit me. But my fabric, thank God, is super, super stretchy. And I actually made my pattern a little bit bigger than I did on my, sportswear video. So it worked out. It's just the fabric, I don't know why it looks so tiny. Honestly, I don't know why it looks like that, but it freaked me out in the beginning. So if your fabric starts looking like this, you're okay. And again, I'm just pinning down the legs and talking too much. So I'm just gonna let some music play, okay? Alright, so I have both my legs pinned down and the crotch pinned down, so I'm just going to sew that entire thing at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to be stretching it as I'm sewing. Like I said, that's really important. I'm telling you, it's really important because when you put on the leggings and that stuff starts popping, you're going to be so mad you wasted all your time. So make sure you stretch your fabric. Afterwards, as I'm sewing, I like to try stuff on. So I put on the leggings, made sure it fit me right. Like I said, I was nervous that it was too small, but obviously it's fitting me like skin. And I put on my heels to make sure that I made my pattern correctly, and it worked out. So now all I have to do is take my shoe apart and add my waistband to my pants. But that's what I'm doing right here, is just checking out to see if everything is working out. I put my leggings down for a minute and I decided to start taking my shoes apart because I got so excited. So this is me right here trying to take this other shoe apart. The other one was easier because I showed you guys earlier that it was a little bit broken. This shoe required a little bit extra love to take apart. So that's what I'm doing right now. Then I put back on my leggings, and let me just tell you guys, this left shoe right here, I butchered it. I completely butchered it when I was doing it. So I'm going to show you guys the good way how to do it, So if you start seeing a flip between the left and the right, it's because I'm telling you the correct direction. So don't mind that. But I'm just putting E6000 glue here on my heels and putting it on both sides, and then I'm smoothing it down so that it's like a complete film on it. Make sure it's an even layer on both sides. After you have a good layer of glue, then you just want to pull down your leggings and literally smooth down your fabric over it. So just take your time, make sure your fabric is laid out flat, because once it's dry, it's stuck there. And you don't want to lift this fabric up because, again, this particular fabric isn't sturdy enough to be moving around thousands of times. So just smooth out your fabric over that glue. And then you can just flip back that fabric on the top and repeat the same thing you did on the heels. Just smooth out some E6000 glue onto the top of your toes, and then place your fabric over it. Make sure it's smooth and everything like that. And when you get to the bottom of your shoe, you're going to take some pins and you're going to pin it tight together as if it's like a seam. Just pin it tight together so that it can dry tight. This step right here, making sure that your fabric is pinned together, is like crucial. It's gonna make your shoe look like you bought it from the store. If you don't do it like this and you try to like rush this process, your shoe's gonna look terrible. You're gonna be walking around like you got homemade shoes on it. Nobody wants that. Like, it's not cute at all. So please pin your fabric underneath your shoes. You are gonna be able to take out the pins if you're worried that it's gonna get stuck. It is gonna come out. Y'all see how good that pinning looks? Your shoe looks so good. So I let this dry for 24 hours, and now I'm gonna start working on the waistband. You could have did this step before you started gluing all your shoe together. I just did my steps backwards. There's no right or wrong way. Right here, I'm deciding what size of my waistband I should do. I originally made my waistband the same length as my waist on the pants, which that was a little bit too tight. So whatever your natural waist is, you still have to pull that over your butt. So I would add about 3 inches to whatever your waist measurement is, and that's going to be the length of your waistband. So now I have my waistband cut out, and I'm just pulling the fabric apart, and I'm going to pin them closed like a hamburger style. That's what they taught us in elementary school, hot dog and hamburger style. I'm just gonna fold my waistband over hamburger style and pin it on the edges, and I'm gonna sew that edge at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Afterwards, I'm just folding my waistband in half, as like I'm showing you right now, and I'm making sure my seam is closed while I'm folding it, and then we're just gonna slip that on top of my fabric. When I placed my waistband on top of my pants, I made sure that that seam on my waistband matched the back center of my high-waisted pants, and I just matched those seams, and then I started pinning all the way around. When I recutted my waistband piece, it actually was a little bit bigger than my pants waist, so I just had to make sure that I evenly distributed all that fabric onto my waistband. I just used a lot of pins so that it laid down flat while I was sewing. So right here, I'm just pinning down the waistband onto the pants. After pinning, your pants should look like this, and you just sew that seam at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, making sure that you stretch this part a lot. Stretch this a lot because it has to go over your butt too, not only your waist. Especially if you decide to get fabric like mine, you're gonna have to stretch this out a lot so that it's gonna fit everything. My waistband looked like this, and this is what the ugly side of it looked like. I left mine like that. I usually would serge it, but for this tutorial, I felt that I could just leave it alone. It wasn't gonna come apart or anything, but that's the end of the pants. And now I just decided to take off all the white ugliness that was on the bottom of the shoe because it was really hard for it to stick down when I did the other shoe off camera. So on this shoe, I'm showing you guys that you need to take off all the dirt, everything. If you need to color in with Sharpie so that your shoe bottom matches and there's no white stuff or anything, make sure you do that. Off camera, I started cutting off that extra fabric that we pinned down. I just took out the pins and cut the fabric off. That was too much and it looked perfect at the bottom. And here you see me cutting off a little bit of the excess fabric too so that it can slide underneath the sole of the shoe perfectly. And then I'm just going to take some E6000 glue and just start gluing down the bottom of the shoe. After smoothing out the layers of glue like we did on the top part of the shoe, I just took my bottom sole and I placed it down where I liked it. I made sure I didn't slide it or anything like that, because when you start sliding, glue gonna get everywhere and then everybody's gonna see that you have glue all over your shoe and then you're gonna be walking around with homemade shoes and that's not cute. So I'm taking my clamps and I'm clamping down the front of my shoe and on the sides of my shoes. The clamps will help it dry flat and dry sturdy. And like I said, I did my other shoe off camera and I didn't use clamps and it looked like I didn't even glue anything down. So the clamps really help if you have some books or you can put your shoes under your desk or something. You need something to hold it down together. So I waited 2 hours later. This shoe right here is my ugly shoe that I rushed and didn't use clamps. I had to fix it, take off glue. Don't rush the process. Follow every step that I said so that you can come out with a good looking shoe. This shoe doesn't look bad to me, but it can look way better like my other foot. My other foot looks banging. And all those wrinkles and stuff, that stuff will disappear when you actually put on the shoes. But right now, you need to cut off the fabric off your heel, bottom heel. It's not supposed to look like that. I just alternated between a seam ripper and a pair of scissors, and I just cut right along my heel. As you'll see, I actually have a heel underneath all that fabric. I just cut along that line and seam ripped against that line. I could actually see it through my fabric, and I made sure I used a seam ripper because it gave it a more cleaner cut. After you cut off this extra fabric on your heel, the tutorial is finished. Next time, again, I'm going to do a different fabric. I didn't like this fabric at all. It looks really good in pictures and walking around, but it's just not sturdy enough. But I got a lot of compliments on my pants when I actually wore them out. So I'm happy that I did it, and I'm able to show you guys how to make your own so you can get the look for less. Balenciaga did a real one with these pair of pants, and I'm happy that I can make it on my own, and I believe that you guys can make it on your own too. But yeah, I really had fun making this tutorial. I'm happy that I did a Michelle Obama DIY, and just leave comments down below and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next time.